Buns podcast with me, Alex Allegra.
And Katie Fee.
It is June, which means it is Pride Month,
Yes,
which means
happy
we are bringing you some
Pride.
Pride-themed episodes. But before we do that, any fun updates, anything we want to talk about beforehand?
I'm trying to think of where we are in time and space. I guess we just recorded last weekend with CMA Fest.
Yeah.
I
I saw I saw a TikTok of someone saying, like, now that CMA Fest is over, like, here's what I worked and here are things that went wrong that were supposed to happen. And it wasn't anything, like, too bad. It was just, like, I don't know if she's, like, an event coordinator or what exactly her position was at CMA Fest, but, like, she just kind of was, like, working a lot of, like, the Diplo events and stuff. And making sure that, like, a lot of, like, the little pop-up things were going well. And so she was just, like, there was just, like, little things that just, like, happened. So it wasn't anything, like, groundbreaking to bring up. But I just thought it was interesting.
Well, we recorded before the last night of Nissan happened. So Russell and Fetty Wap actually had their moment of performing together. So, and they went to Barstool before that. And, like, it was weird. I sent it to you. I was like, why do they even have mics? Because they're just playing the song and they're, like, not all the way trying to lip sync or anything, but they just, like, had mics too.
Yeah. Also, apparently, she said that they had posted about one of the pop-ups that had happened too far in advance to the point where there was too many people that wanted to go. So then they had to, like, delete the post. But then people were like, I'm not sure if it's even happening with the Diplo stuff. So it's like a lot of those pop-ups ended up being more interesting than, like, the actual stuff. And I think that even might have been, like, what even locals were like, oh, I'll go down to see.
Was it a Diplo one? Or there was someone who I saw says that Barstool will have people pop up during, like, the DJ set, and it will just be advertised as a DJ set and not say that there's going to be, like, a well-known person popping up, and I guess that's the way to know. But also, I feel like DJ sets are so common downtown late at night, so, like, I don't know how you would know that.
There's probably pop-ups at all those things if someone's in like, Barstool especially gets a lot of, like, the random pop-up stuff just in general, and they have a lot of, like, that was where I wanted to really go see Pauly D.
Yeah, it was like Jersey Shore.
It was just a DJ set at Barstool.
Yeah.
And then
I've yet to
Barstool
go there.
also did a run. It's very much college-y, obviously, because it's Barstool, but also just, like, it is the one, like, club-esque bar in Nashville that feels like not Nashville. Like, there's always a long-ass line. It is the most, like, fratty place. Like, it is where, like, kind of like how when we went to Jelly Rolls, I felt like Jelly Rolls' top floor was, like, it's, like, a lot of, like, VIP booths and, like, those kinds of things. But, like, it's actually, like, done to, like, it feels more like a club than it does, like, a bar in Nashville, you know? And, like, they play a lot of, like, very DJ-heavy music, not really, like, anything, like, live, which is fair. I mean, we have plenty of that downtown.
Right.
So, like, yeah, that's how it feels to me. Is, like, it feels like the actual, like, college bar when there is none downtown, which is why Laney's is, like, that perfect balance of, like, it's never super crowded and it plays good DJ music from, like, 2000s prom era is how I like to describe it.
They like to throw in, like,
I love it. So,
the occasional, like, country, but, like, country girl shake it for me type of, where you can still, like, dance to it, but then they'll also throw in, like, High School Musical, so it's, like, a good mix for our age group, I guess.
But I'm there for, like, the low and the from the window to the wall but yeah, but that's how Barstool feels, and it's always such a long line that I never even try to get. I'm like, why? Okay. And I think it might actually have a cover, whereas, and I don't know if it's, like, every, like, country song talks about paying covers to get into bars and stuff like that, and I don't know if it just used to be a thing in Broadway, but it's not a thing.
Or maybe it's a thing in other places because you're writing songs about, like, hometown bars and stuff.
It definitely is in, like, New York and LA and stuff like that, and there's definitely places in Nashville that do charge covers, but like I feel like it's just not as much of a thing, which is why bar hopping on Broadway is a lot more fun, because like then you don't have to feel like you're wasting money to go into a place you can see if you like the vibe and leave.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't stay out or anything in Louisville last week after Ian, but like I know when I was looking up, they send like a know before you go type FAQ email, and it asked about like cover charges for the places around it, because basically it's like you're on this street, but you're in this kind of like there's bars, restaurants, clubs surrounding the area that the concert was at, and so it said some of those places might have like a cover charge to get in, in addition to what you paid for the ticket, because that place was like closed off, where like you had to have a ticket to the show to go to any of the venues. I think
if we would have went to that one that was right there, that was like the sports bar, I was like, we probably could have had fun, but then no, I'm glad we didn't.
No, I was being realistic of like, we have 2 days of CMA Fest that we're doing after this, and we're already going to be getting back late because it was like 12:30 when we got to my house. Yeah. You had another hour to drive home after dropping me off. So I was just like, there's no way, we gotta pace ourselves this week.
If I would have gone to that and then had to drive home, I was already like, I hit the pillow and fell asleep when I got home. But then if I would have also like gone out and then been like, no, that probably wouldn't have been a good idea in the long run. And I just didn't think about it because I was like, 3 hours is one of those, like, it feels long, but it also doesn't feel long. Like, it depends when you are doing it, what entertainment you have for yourself. Like, sometimes it can feel really, really short and like in, out, done. Sometimes it can feel like this is a never ending road. The drive is also like, there's nothing. It's like very, you're out in the middle of nowhere.
I've gone down there before too, which is like 2 hour, 2.5 or whatever, so it's probably about the same ish drive. But yeah, I feel that for that too. It sometimes takes forever, sometimes it goes by real quick. So. Yeah. Is there any?
I say that like even at Kane Brown's bar though, like they had surprise DJ pop-ups all that whole weekend because like Snooki was there that one day and like.
Yeah, I never actually saw footage of it happening, but I know that not her, but like I know that Kane was at either All Red or Music Row Happy Hour and said something about he was going to go bartend at his bar for the night. So I didn't see any actual footage of that happening. But I know Luke Bryan did at his, and then he got up on stage and he like made the crowd like take a beer from the bar and like pass it along up to the stage for him. He's like, draft, but he's like, whatever, because they were sending a can up and he started yelling draft. It's like, hey, take what you can get, buddy.
Also, like sending a glass of beer
sounds like, or can sounds like a better option. Sound like
it's gonna be
he's always crazy. I haven't seen him play, I don't think, since we went to his bar opening show, actually, but like he seems more chaotic as he's aged, and I kind of want to go just for the chaos of it more so than the performance.
I saw somebody review this year's like performances, and somebody said last year he was just way too drunk to give a good performance, so he's very hit or miss, like if he's actually caring at this point. It's also like you as a celebrity like pop up at like a bar and like instantly it's just like another level of like, okay, now you can do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like,
yeah, I know. It wasn't last year, but there was one year that he was like the surprise guest for Spotify House, and he had drank way too much, and he had already played Nissan, and then he came over and it was like a whole nother level.
Did we ever figure out what the hand guest pop-up was for Spotify House?
I don't feel like I ever saw who surprise performances were, honestly. Other than Florida Georgia Line, but that was like determined already. Like,
I need Kelsey Ballerini to stop doing these guest performance stuff with just like SoFi.
Yeah, that's her only CMA Fest she did.
I don't want to sign up for a random ass bank account.
Yeah.
And I was going to enter that contest, but totally forgot, which is
But you had to be a SoFi member
but I'm
or something
glad
for it.
Because I was like, I wouldn't have done that anyways. And then also, like, even her, like, album release stuff. Do you know how badly I wanted to go to whatever surprise thing it was for her EP last year? Mm-hmm. And all it ended up being, again, another, like, credit card.
SoFi thing.
Yeah. And I'm just like, really? Because I don't know how many of those people were just, like, diehard fans, but, like, I, like, lived for that album, and I was, like, ready to pay as much as I needed to be at a show for whatever pop-up it was, because I thought it was going to be something like what Marin's doing for Hero and the 10th anniversary down at the Ryman. Like, I thought it was going to be a show like that, which I am so... When I tell you I am so upset that I cannot go to that show, and I am like, Marin, if you need a videographer, if you need a photographer for that show, like, please, I would die, which I'm sure
you can't go.
I'd go then.
Be like, hey, it's work now.
Now it's work.
I can't,
exactly.
Can't go to this other show now because this is work. Sorry. Yeah.
But I love that album so much.
Yeah.
And I really, I don't have it on vinyl because I still have it on CD. And now that I really like the black and white version of it with the deluxe and everything like that for the, whatever she's calling it, for the 10th anniversary. So I'm like, maybe I buy that one.
Yeah. I remember when, before that album had come out, like, I'd seen her open for Little Big Town. And actually this was like, she said in an interview later on, like, that was like her first weekend ever out opening for people, and it was like her and a guitarist, and people behind us were going like, who? And
yeah,
like,
well, but the funniest thing is, I can vividly remember the first time I ever saw her. I was sitting in, like, study hall in high school, and there was this girl, and she had blonde hair, and she had, like, Drunk Girls Don't Cry in My Church out on this little EP, and I listened to it, and I was like, I don't care about this, and, like, did not like it for whatever reason. And then I, like, something happened, and My Church was all over the radio, and I loved that song. And then I was like, I put two and two together, and then Drunk Girls Don't Cry is also, like, I love that song. It's so underrated. It is, like, the best song ever. And there was, like, two other songs off of the EP that were also on that album. And then she came out with her, like, brunette hair, and she was no longer, like, this blonde, because I guess, like, at the time her label was really trying to push the whole, like, long blonde hair stereotype to get her into anything, because at that point I guess she had done music for, like, 10 years in Texas, had 2 albums out, was doing nothing, and then she, like, ended up here in Nashville and started writing, and then they were like, well, this is how you have to get into it, and then she was like, fuck that, and then obviously she is where she is now, and she's freaking amazing.
But yeah, I remember, like, listening to the songs from that EP on, like, YouTube and stuff, and just waiting for a full-length album, and then I got too impatient, and I was like, I'm buying this EP on iTunes, and then eventually got the album, but it was like, well, I could not wait for the full-length album because I wanted those songs so badly. I guess
that's why, is I was previewing, like, the 30-second preview on iTunes is how I listened to it, so I wasn't listening to the full song, and I was like, whatever, didn't really care about. I was like, whatever. And then I heard My Church on the radio, and then literally the first time we drove down from Pennsylvania to Belmont, that album was on loop the whole ride down. And I was like, okay, in love with Maren Morris.
Also, like, this is a thing, I don't know if it's a logistics thing where there's, like, reasonings why artists, openers pick, like, for when they pick when to go to the merch booth to do meet and greets when they play, because I hate when openers are like, I'm gonna be at the merch booth, like, right after my set, because I get nervous that I'm gonna miss the start of the headliner if I go meet them. Like, I would prefer them to do it at the end of the night, because that's why I didn't meet her that night, was because I was nervous about timing and stuff, so I didn't go see her. But then, like, Aubrey Sellers, when she opened for Miranda, she did it at the end of the night. And so I met her because I was like, okay, I could do it.
I think it's really dependent on what the artist, if the artist even wants to do that, because sometimes they don't tell anybody until they're on stage and they're like, I'm going to go do this. And then like everyone's scrambling. Because I've been there when like they're scrambling around and they're like, well, they never said that they were going to do this. And now we have to find security to make sure it's like in an orderly process. It probably also depends if like, by the end of their set, like their bus leaves before the headliner
it could be that too.
Is finished. They probably have to do it then.
Sometimes it's like I don't know where to
they're
go.
So small that they probably think like, oh, I'll just do it now, and like you know, maybe one or two people might show up, and to the point where it's like they're not really thinking that way, you know. So it might just be a number of different things, because like when I met Russell, he was opening for Kelsey and Thomas Rhett when I first met him, and he did it at the very end of the show.
I think the only people I've met,
and no one knew it, and he just said he'd be at the merch stand. No one knew when, so I was and
also the problem is like you gotta tell people which one if the venue has more than one. Because I think that's my issue was with Cassidy Pope opening for Dierks Bentley, was I didn't know where to go, to the point where I'm like, well, Dierks is starting soon, I need to get back. So I just didn't go because I was worried about timing, and I was lost because I didn't know where to go. But
I don't know if they, again, necessarily know it. Every venue is different, so like if they don't have a lay of the land too, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna make this happen, but somebody else is going to figure out the logistics, and that doesn't get communicated to the audience.
Yeah. The only time I think I've ever met the opener when they did it like in between and not at the end of the night was High Valley, because it was at the fair, and it was like, okay, there's one merch stand, and it was like you would not miss the show if you're still in line, because it's just the grandstands. So also that was awkward, because the only time I've ever met like a non-solo artist, because they were a duo at the time. I don't remember which one's High Valley now, because it's now just a solo artist. But it just felt awkward, because I'm like, I don't know. There's two of you and one of me. I don't know how to interact now. But yeah. But how did we get here?
Just talking
Marin.
about life in general.
Yeah. I was like, where did backtrack to how we got into the opener stuff? Yeah. But I could have met Marin, but it just was timing wise. I was like, I don't want to miss Little Big Town, and I don't know exactly where she is and all that stuff. Yeah. So,
were you ever a wait by the bus girl?
No. I feel like I might have wanted to, but I also was like, that feels like crossing a line somehow.
Okay, so. I was a wait by the bus girl at certain times. So when it was small artists that my best friend and I would go to in these little clubs, we would do it because we were like, we're going to meet them like they're going to do it kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then I will say, when I was huge into Hunter Hayes, I did wait outside of his bus at the fair, and the Swan brothers came out instead. And that was because everyone was like, he's going to come. And then I think there was something happened, and they were like, no, we really have to get him on the road. So the Swan brothers came out to as a consolation prize. They were like, thank you guys so much for waiting. We're going to give them something, but we got to move. Yeah. So like, you guys can't stay here anymore. And the fair did have a very strict curfew, and we were reaching that, and they were like, these people have to fucking leave. Like, that was like the only time I felt very fangirly. I also did wait at his bus at the 24-hour one, because almost everybody kind of waited outside, and they had an actual barricade for you to do that at.
Right.
And he came I think I've told this story before, but he came right towards me, and he was going to sign something, and some lady just pushed me out of the way, and he saw it and was like, and then he made sure to like give me extra time. He was like, how are you? I was like
so
and
sorry,
I was like, little 15-year-old me was in heaven. And then I was like, I got up at 5 a.m. to come here because we were the last stop on that 24-hour thing. But I recently made a TikTok about like things that like instantly boost performers like performance for any style artist, and I was gonna include clips, but I just didn't have a full clip of it, of Bailey staying after the show and signing for the people in the pit and stuff. And I'm just like, it's little things like that that really do, I mean, as long as you're being safe, because obviously there are people that make it unsafe, which you never know what you're walking into. But really, the bus things, the little like, it really can make or break an artist. Like, when you're caring about your fans in like those little ways, it's like, and that's kind of, even with the whole chapel stuff, like, I get not wanting to do that when you're off the clock, quote unquote, but when you're actively, like, you just got off stage, like, yes, I know you might, whatever, but like, going that extra mile really does, it can turn a fan, a casual fan, into a real fan. Like, oh my gosh, like, this artist cares about me. Obviously, then you kind of get into parasocial relationships, though, so you do have to kind of be careful. But, like, again, it's just, like, those little moments of, like, connection with an artist just really can make or break how you view the artist. And it's just, like, it just also paints you in a better light. Like, I know you shouldn't care about that all the time, but, like, it really does paint artists in, like, wow, they're decent people. Like, they're thankful for where they are, instead of just, like, oh, well, now I'm rich and can do this, and it paints you in an asshole light, because it's like, you know, there are plenty of artists that, like, just think they can do whatever the fuck they want and paint this very awful persona, and it's just like, that's not the reason that people should get into this. So anywho, let's go on to today's topic. So Katie has our story for today.
So we're gonna do 2 parts for you for Pride this year, and do one this week that I'm doing, and then we'll have Alex do one for next week's episode. So I decided to get into, I guess, a genre that we don't really talk about too much. That was a big sigh, Asher.
He's tired.
And go into more of a classical music route this time.
I'm really scared we picked the same person. I was like, why do I feel like I should ask Katie if we picked the same person?
That's the danger of when we do these episodes where we, like, both pick a person to talk about.
I have never felt like I should check with who she does, and I was like, why do I have this weird sensation? Tchaikovsky. Yes, we both said Tchaikovsky. Damn. I was really struggling, and I was like, let's just switch it up.
Oh, no. Okay, so
Katie's going to give it to us. I'll figure something out.
So really stay tuned for next week to find out who Alex is going to talk about. So we're going classical, and we don't really talk classical because I feel like, even though that is still music business, that is a professional genre, obviously, we just don't talk about it that much. But yeah, as usual, we'll put all the links to all the sources in our episode description for you, but I kind of tried to put them together, so hopefully this is a succinct story.
Yeah.
All right. The shock that homosexuality has been inherent throughout history is slowly dissipating with the help of modern history dramas that favor gay narratives, yet our society is still surprised
AKA heated rivalry.
Is that a history drama?
No, I just... Okay. Like, it just feels like in that kind of realm of things. I guess. Know.
Maybe... hockey history? I don't know. I was thinking more like, is Bridgerton... I don't watch Bridgerton, but is that...
Yeah, they have some gayness there.
I haven't watched Bridgerton, but that's what I think of, like, modern history drama.
You know what also the great is, like, I'll sleep with whoever kind of a thing at times, and it's like, yeah. What about it?
What about it? Where are we? Yet our society is still surprised to discover some of our most celebrated historical figures were gay. 19th century composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, I put the thing, so hopefully I'm saying it right, and all these other Russian names as well.
I know, yeah.
Surrounded himself with supportive friends and family members. These loved ones helped the composer navigate the social customs and sexual expectations of his era. His brother, Modest, who was also gay, was his closest confidant and later biographer. Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky was a Russian composer of the Romantic period. He was the first Russian composer whose music made a lasting impression internationally, and he wrote some of the most popular concert and theatrical music in the classical repertoire, including the 1812 Overture, his first piano concerto, the violin concerto, the Romeo and Juliet Overture Fantasy, several symphonies, the opera Eugene... I didn't look up how to say this. Onegin? You don't know either. Cool. And the ballets Swan Lake, The Sleeping Beauty, and The Nutcracker.
Swan Lake is one of my favorite ballets. Fun fact for you. I always try to go see it whenever it's being played. Okay. My favorite.
He was born on May 7th, 1840 in Votkinsk, a small town in Vyatka Governorate during the Russian Empire. We're going to just keep pushing through. Tchaikovsky reportedly grew up in a home where music was highly respected. As members of the landowning middle class, Tchaikovsky's parents seem to have made a point of exposing him to pieces by bel canto masters Bellini and Rossini, as well as to works by the legendary Mozart. Once young Pyotr's musical talent became apparent, one story claims he was plunking out melodies on the keyboard as early as age 4. He began piano lessons at the age of 5 with Maria Paukikova. Within 3 years, he became as adept at reading sheet music as his teacher. Tchaikovsky's parents, initially supportive, hired a tutor, bought an orchestrion, a form of barrel organ that could imitate elaborate orchestral effects, and encouraged his piano study for both aesthetic and practical reasons.
I'm sure that's insanely hard to play, but that sounds really cool. Yeah. Like, the organ already is so hard to play, but then to add elements that sound like
the strings and stuff,
other orchestral instruments,
I'm sure that helps amazing. Too, of, like, obviously didn't get into that, but, like, I'm sure, like, learning on something like that helps his brain develop for, like, composing skills later on, of having those sounds of being able to hear all these elements of instruments that he'll later, like, compose parts for. But in 1850, they sent Tchaikovsky to the Imperial School of Jurisprudence in St. Petersburg. They had both graduated from institutes in St. Petersburg and the School of Jurisprudence, which mainly served the lesser nobility, and thought that this education would prepare Tchaikovsky for a career as a civil servant. Regardless of talent, the only musical careers available in Russia at that time, except for the affluent aristocracy, were as a teacher in an academy or as an instrumentalist in one of the imperial theaters. Both were considered on the lowest rank of the social ladder, with individuals in them enjoying no more rights than peasants. Tchaikovsky came from a small household and desired to meet his father's expectations. This meant conforming to the idealistic lifestyle of a prosperous young man by becoming well-educated, attaining good social standing, and finding a suitable wife. The School of Jurisprudence, an all-boys school, is where historians suspect the Russian composer began to realize his sexual inclinations. His classmate Alexei Apukhin later introduced him to the homosexual subculture of St. Petersburg society, which further fostered his sexuality. He was undaunted by his sexual discoveries and believed he would have no issue leading a double life as a husband and gay lover. So I guess he just, like, in his mind was like, okay, we're gonna, like, have this life with a platonic wife, essentially, but then still be able to, like, have a hidden life as well, I guess. Upon his graduation in 1859, Tchaikovsky took a position as a clerk in the Ministry of Justice, though it was soon obvious his passions laid elsewhere. He appealed to his father about switching vocations, and following a standard European tour, finally began his musical education at St. Petersburg's Russian Musical Society. By 1862, he was a student at the brand new St. Petersburg Conservatory under the direction of composer and concert pianist Anton Rubinstein. In 1865, the Russian public got its first taste of Tchaikovsky's music, and by 1866, Tchaikovsky was a lecturer at the newly formed Moscow Conservatory, headed by Rubinstein's brother Nikolai. While Tchaikovsky is labeled by historians as homosexual, he did fall in love with the famous opera diva Desiree Artot.
So that's why I was gonna say, I didn't want to jump ahead of you, but I was like, they said that he did fall in love. It seemed like there was at least some kind of love. I mean, you can still have, like, very platonic, deep love for somebody, so who knows how, like, sexual in nature, like, their love had become.
It could also, I mean, it says historians. I don't think there's necessarily, I guess next paragraph says some stuff about writing to his brother about having interest in guys, but, like, just because you have like, even if you have a little bit, even if you have a little bit of like feelings for the opposite sex, doesn't mean you have to necessarily label yourself as bi or pan. But like,
well, and especially in those kinds of, it was like either not talked about and it was just like your lifestyle of like what you did, or
they also
it was
didn't
straight
have the whole,
or gay. Like there wasn't
like a spectrum
like,
of it.
Yeah.
So it could be like either they just didn't think of that term at the time, or like even if it was like a little bit into women, but like maybe he wasn't into women enough to like consider himself bisexual, basically. But yeah, so fell in love with opera diva. This could have been a result of his father's unwavering expectation that Tchaikovsky should marry. The couple became engaged, but Desiree unexpectedly eloped with a Spanish baritone, and Tchaikovsky was crushed. Following the failed engagement, okay, so here's the letters. Tchaikovsky wrote letters to Modis that he had male interests at the time, one of which was his student Edward Zach, who is thought to have been the muse behind Romeo and Juliet. His student later committed suicide after suffering a series of tragic events, and Tchaikovsky expressed his love and deep loss over the young man's death in later writings. The hope of maintaining a platonic marriage while pursuing other male lovers proved to be an impossible plan, which is valid. Tchaikovsky impulsively married Antonia Milyukova, a student who wrote many passionate love letters, but began to experience almost immediate regret towards the end of the wedding day. Within weeks, Tchaikovsky attempted to drown himself in the Moscow River, and 2 months after the wedding, left his wife and withdrew to St. Petersburg. He wrote to his brother Anatoly that, quote, "There is nothing more futile than wanting to be anything other than what I am by nature," end quote. However, this forced social conformation enhanced rather than hindered Tchaikovsky's artistic achievements. During his recovery period in Switzerland following the disastrous marriage, he produced his Fourth Symphony and the opera Eugene Onegin. Again, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm not familiar with the opera, so yeah. But they are two of his most beloved works. Though he would achieve international fame, Tchaikovsky was unusually adept at communicating loneliness, longing, and existential angst across a wide range of musical forms. This was perhaps due in part to his choice of subject matter: a fantasy overture inspired by Romeo and Juliet in 1870, a ballet of Swan Lake in 1875-76, likely based on a collage of harrowing fairy tales, an opera adaptation of Pushkin's unrequited love story Eugene Onegin in 1879, and many, many more. But it may also have been a musical manifestation of the pain and anxiety Tchaikovsky himself suffered, both inherently. His governess once called him a child of glass, and as a gay man in the 19th century Russia.
I mean, a lot of they're thought of like very beautifully and like, you know, in such great lights. But I mean, like, if you do look at it, like, Swan Lake is actually a very dark ballet, and like the story it comes from, like, it ends in like suicide of the swans, and then like you have Romeo and Juliet, obviously, which is another one like that, and even the Nutcracker. I mean, I loved the Nutcracker even as a child, but it has a very dark undertone to the dream, like sequencings, like until you get to the second half when they're in like in the like actual dream world with like all of the like performances. But like before that, when like she's in like the nightmare of like with the rats and it, like that part always used to scare me. Like, so there definitely are these darker themes that can like show even in like the beauty, but like
yeah, I will say I have only watched the Barbie versions of both Swan Lake and the Nutcracker, so
those are both the happy versions.
Yeah, I was like, it was
really love
a kids version, so
no, and well, I mean the Nutcracker is, I mean, objectively, like, even the scary part isn't really like that one overall is very like wholesome. But Swan Lake, I didn't realize until I was like in high school how the ending to Swan Lake actually goes, because even when I did it as a ballet for a recital, we only did the first half, which is like the not so bad part of the the whole half of it. So yeah.
So that fits right into the next part of Tchaikovsky's homosexuality is no way defined him as an artist or a human being, but given the composer lived and worked at a time when being gay could lead to imprisonment or worse, this aspect of his identity lends richer context to his life and works. Songs such as None But the Lonely Heart, which is part of the Op. 6 romances of 1869.
I don't know why when you said that it made me think of Owner of a Lonely Heart. If you know that song.
No.
But yes. All I was saying in my head.
Take on added meaning when viewed through the perspective of someone forced to keep their feelings a secret out of fear. Scenes such as Tatiana's bittersweet letter aria and Eugene Onegin land more acutely when compared to the desperate actions of Tchaikovsky's own wife, Antonia Milyukova, whom he recently married after receiving a declaration of love, much like Tatiana's. After this period, Tchaikovsky avoided the company of women and began a discreet relationship with his servant Alosha Safronov, as well as on and off relationships with other men, such as violinist Yosif Kotek. There is much debate with regards to the composer's relationship with his nephew, Bob Davidov. That can't be right. Davidov?
I don't
Davidov.
remember. Yeah, it's something like that though, yeah.
Davidov just sounds silly. In the depths of intimacy they shared, yet novelist E.M. Forster wrote in his love story Maurice that, quote, Tchaikovsky had fallen in love with his own nephew and dedicated his masterpiece, Symphony Pathétique, to him, end quote. So that is the meh part. Don't love that. But there was joy in Tchaikovsky's music too, buoyed by nationalistic fervor and fueled by the confidence his friends and colleagues instilled in him. While in Moscow, Tchaikovsky found inspiration from fellow composer Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, whose works incorporated national folk tunes as well as rhythms and harmonies that were recognizably and irrefutably Russian. Rimsky-Korsakov's influence can arguably be heard in Tchaikovsky's String Quartet No. 1 in D major, which is the first full string quartet by a Russian composer ever performed in public, which features a second movement built entirely on Russian folk music. It's also evident in Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 2 in C minor, The Little Russian, whose score weaves together three folk melodies from the Ukrainian territory. And then, of course, there's Tchaikovsky's ultimate nationalist anthem, his 1812 Overture. Written to honor a Russian victory over Napoleon, though this was perhaps less an authentic tribute to his country and more of a business venture because it was all but commissioned by Nikolai Rubinstein for a cathedral opening, and Tchaikovsky famously hated the piece. Outside of his Russian pride, Tchaikovsky also found solace and motivation in a long-standing, if thoroughly unusual, friendship with an unlikely patron, the widowed aristocrat Nadezhda von Meck, an admirer of the composer's thanks to his instrumental adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest. Von Meck contacted Tchaikovsky in 1877, offering to fund his career for a small price of never meeting her in person, which is odd, but okay. For roughly 13 years, the two wrote one another frequently. Around 1,100 of their letters survive today. And von Meck's generosity allowed Tchaikovsky to complete, among other compositions, his operas Eugene Onegin, The Maid of Orleans, and Mazeppa, his symphonies No. 4 and 5, and his Sleeping Beauty ballet, which supplies much of the score for the Disney film of the same name. Von Meck severed their emotional and financial ties in 1890, but Tchaikovsky remained grateful. Indeed, Tchaikovsky's fruitful years under von Meck's sponsorship had helped him achieve worldwide success from Russia all the way to the U.S., and his later life saw him exploring new avenues of artistic expression both on the page and on the stage. He debuted as a conductor in Moscow in 1887, eventually taking his baton to cities such as Prague, Berlin, Leipzig, and Copenhagen, and even conducting at the opening of New York's Carnegie Hall in 1891. In 1890, he completed his opera The Queen of Spades, which drew particular attention from Tsar Alexander III, and in 1892, Tchaikovsky penned the future Christmas staple, the Nutcracker, which introduced Russia to the ethereal sounds of the Celesta keyboard and with the instantly memorable Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. It was in his final year, though, that Tchaikovsky would compose the work he himself described as the most sincere of all his pieces, into which he claimed he'd poured his entire soul. His Symphony No. 6 in B minor, nicknamed the Pathétique, as in moving or melancholic, premiered in 1893 with Tchaikovsky at the podium, a strangely fitting conclusion to a troubled life and illustrious career. And then he passed away 9 days later under circumstances that are still unclear. I kind of read, like, some say cholera, some say he purposely got cholera as, like, a suicide thing.
Interesting.
I don't know. Both of his parents also died from cholera, so
cholera is not a fun thing to die from. So I don't know why you would purposefully give yourself that.
I mean, if you were done,
nicer ways to die. Though.
Sorry, that sounded really bad, but so Tchaikovsky's life story remains inspiring in the orchestra world and the LGBTQ community. And that is the end of it.
Yeah. So. He was, I tried to just, like, find big moments or, like, something, and he kept coming up, and I was like, what if that's why I was gonna dive into him, too.
I was, like, trying to, like, because I don't want to make it all about his sexuality, like, and have, like, all his, like, musical things, obviously, in there, too. So I was, like, trying to make it, like, all-encompassing of, like, the hardships, but also the music and accomplishments with that and stuff. Yeah. So,
well, and I think it's also just sometimes those things can be like, he did all these things and he was gay, but, like, I liked that a lot of the articles, like, crossed where like he obviously drew a lot of that inspiration and things like that. Yeah. It's just interesting because, like, I also think of this period, the Romantic period isn't that long ago in music, and I just think of it as so much longer, ago, that I'm like...
It feels like it's, like, 1600s.
Yeah, and so I
1800s,
think like, oh, it's that long ago that, like, were they even caring? Because, like, you go back even to, like, Greek time, which I know was even, like...
Right.
Other way in time, like pre... Yeah, what's it called? BC, yeah. And so I'm like, at that point, they, like, we're learning a lot more of, like, how Romans and Greeks and all that, like, really didn't care about people's sexuality as much. And, like, it's a more newer concept to care about what people are doing in bedroom terms. So it's like, and then we, like, have gone the complete opposite way. And now we're in this, like, middle ground again of, like, it's not as completely, like, dependent upon who is in charge of our country, looked down upon, you know, so interesting.
Yeah, this is super random, but I've been seeing TikToks pop up. I don't even know what the username is, but it's this guy that will go up to people in public and just give them compliments. And, like, sometimes, especially with the women, he just randomly, like, he'll give a compliment of, like, you look so great in those blue scrubs, I'm gay. Like, he'll just, like, throw that in there, and I think it's just to, like, make them feel comfortable that they're not getting hit on or something. But it's funny with, like, the older women sometimes, because then they're like, that's okay. Like kind of like, why are you telling me this? Like, it's fine, I don't care type of thing. But I'm just like, that gives me faith in humanity.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with any of this. It got
Tchaikovsky
and stuff, but like,
there, so it brought it back around. Happy.
Like, talking of, like, how society has changed over time and stuff. It just gives faith in humanity that, like, these, like, older women of, like, an older generation are just like, that's okay. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Be you.
Well, if you guys have any more notes about Tchaikovsky, did you guys know he was gay? Because I didn't know any of them were gay, but also, like, that time frame is also, like, insanely gay coded. Like, ballet and all this stuff is supposed to be, like, this androgynous, like, no real sexuality to the things because they're moving art pieces and stuff like that it's like, yeah, no wonder, like, some of these people,
I mean, also, like, you think of, like, back to, like, is it Shakespeare times where it's like women weren't allowed to act, so it's like the men were having to play like roles of women and stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I had that like opening sentence or like couple sentences of like how you don't think about, like, people are surprised to discover that even like that far back in time like gay people existed, but like that's because they have existed in all times. It's just wasn't as like talked about and expressed and stuff. So yeah, if there's any fun Tchaikovsky facts you got for us, like maybe we didn't cover something or your favorite part of his history, his works, like let us know. Send them to us at themusiclenspodcast@gmail.com. Drop them in the comments on our YouTube, on our socials. All of those can be found at the Music Lens Podcast. You could follow Alex at Alex Allegra Music, and you can follow me at Katie Fee Music, and we will see you next week to find out who Alex is going to talk about.
Bye.
Bye.